Halloween, the spooky season. Known today as the time of year where we embrace theatrics a little bit. As an unofficial holiday, October is peppered with scary costumes, parties, horror movies, carved pumpkins lit by candles, and of course, on Halloween itself, the 31st of October, children venture out into the night dressed in costumes of characters, scary or not, and partake in what's known as trick-or-treating, knocking on randoms' doors and receiving sweets from neighbours. But what's the history and origins of this unofficial celebration observed in many different countries around the world? How far back do its traditions go? Welcome to Decades, and in today's video, we'll be exploring the history of Halloween. The event we know today as Halloween is at the very least partially rooted in Christian practices, with its name deriving from All Hallows Eve, the evening before the Christian All Hallows Day, observed on the 1st of November, then followed by All Souls Day on the 2nd. Akin to other holidays, vigils and major feasts would be held the night before on the 31st. These days would be known together as All Hallowtide, a time to remember the dead, whether they're saints, martyrs, or simply faithful departed Christians. Christians honour All Hallows Day to pray for recently departed souls on their journey to heaven. Christianity alone, however, is surely not the only influence on this hallowed night. All Hallowtide is believed to be a Christianization of the Roman festival of the dead Lemuria, at least by some, a mighty feast in the ancient religion of Rome, in which rites were performed to exorcise malevolent, restless souls of the dead. My favourite bit is supposedly favour would be granted with offerings of beans. Probably black beans, but that won't stop me from imagining Heinz baked ones. The Lemuria festival would be held on the 9th, 11th and 13th of May according to the Julian calendar due to the myth of Romulus and Remus, twin brothers whose story is the founding of the city of Rome in itself, and the Roman kingdom's rise thereafter. Legend has it Romulus imposed the event himself to appease the spirit of his brother Remus, whom he killed. During these days, it was custom to expel malicious spirits by walking around the house barefoot, throwing black beans over the shoulder in the dark of night. The head of any particular household would be responsible for carrying out this rite, getting up at midnight to do so whilst chanting, "I send these with black beans, I redeem me and mine," up to 9 times, followed by incantations to ward off the ghosts of ancestors. It's believed by some that this event may have been Christianized by Pope Boniface IV between 609 and 610 when he repurposed the Pantheon of Rome into the Blessed Virgin, St. Mary and all martyrs, which may have specifically occurred on the 13th of May. For those unfamiliar with what Christianization is, it's when a practice, a person or a location and society are imbued with Christian principles, regardless of whether or not that thing, person or location was meant to be somewhat Christian. It has been declared so. In the centuries that followed, however, churches in the British Isles would begin holding feasts to commemorate All Saints on the 1st of November. It's believed these customs would then be introduced further afield in other European regions, such as the Frankish Empire. Come the end of the 12th century, All Hallowtide was in full force in Western Christian society. Traditions such as a ringing church bell for the poor souls condemned to purgatory, with criers dressed in all black parading streets and ringing a mournful chime to call out all good Christians to observe the event and remember the departed. Then came the custom of sharing soul cakes for christened souls, a small, round cake baked with sweet spices that often resembled shortbread in texture, marked with a cross. This may serve as the origin for the trick-or-treating that we see today. According to William Shakespeare's The Two Gentlemen of Verona, Christians would hollow out turnips and place a candle within to shine through the holes in the body that would become known as jack-o'-lanterns. This, or in failing being accurate, this story could serve as the origin for the modern use of pumpkins as jack-o'-lanterns to mark Halloween today. That being said, in folklore, The name jack-o'-lantern derives from a reported phenomenon of peculiar lights flickering over peat bogs known as will-o'-the-wisps. This phenomenon is known as ignis fatuus, or foolish fire. An Irish legend also references Stingy Jack, a drinker and sinner who captured Satan by tricking him into climbing a tree, then etching a cross into the bark, in order to bargain with the devil. The bargain being the devil may never capture his soul upon his death. Jack would go on to live his life of sin and drink, believing there would be no consequence. Now he's made a deal with the devil. As a result, upon Jack's death, he was refused into heaven, and the devil kept his word and refused to grant Jack admission to hell, throwing a coal straight from its fires at him. Jack became doomed to roam the earth, his path dimly lit by a hollow turnip housing that very coal, searching for a spot to finally rest forever after. The utilisation of these root vegetable lanterns was said to ward off evil souls. This would increase in popularity as time went on. Now, Christianity isn't the only horse in this race. There's plenty of evidence suggesting Gaelic influence over what we know today as Halloween. The Festival of Samhain is celebrated between the 31st of October and 1st of November, marking the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the darker months of the year. Whilst held officially on the 1st of November, celebrations would begin to occur the evening prior on the 31st of October, the same date as Halloween, celebrated when the veil between this world and the Celtic world of the dead is thinnest. Samhain is believed to be rooted in Celtic pagan origin and consists of ritual bonfires atop hilltops, contests, drinking, feasts, meetings, divination rituals, and mumming and guising. First recorded in 16th century Scotland and later Ireland and Wales, though believed to have been practiced for hundreds of years prior at this point, people would dress up in costumes and recite songs and verses in exchange for food offerings, impersonating souls of the dead to receive these offerings on their behalf, believing it would protect the impersonator from harm, courtesy of the other world. Personifying the old spirits of the winter, requesting reward to provide good fortune. In Scotland, young men would venture from house to house, veiled in costume and with painted black faces. In the event they weren't welcomed, they would threaten to cause mayhem. This custom is believed to have survived into as recently as the 20th century. Guisers would dress up as a white mare, a man covered in a white sheet with a decorated horse skull utilised as a mask. This was known as Lair Barn in southern Ireland, or Mariluid in Wales. Though not necessarily the same thing, the similarities are more than striking. The white horse is often seen as an omen of death, although this custom wasn't exclusive to Samhain. Pranks would also be a part of Samhain festivals, and the concept of mumming and guising could be an alternative origin for trick-or-treating, similar to Christianity's soul cake custom. Many of the customs of Samhain would also crop up in other festivals, ensuring it was popular. However, for Celtic-speaking regions especially, mumming and guising was fitting for the night of which supernatural beings were allegedly roaming and could be warded off by humans. Irish literature first records the event of Samhain taking place as early as the 9th century, though much of Irish mythology was only spoken until this time where it was recorded and documented, meaning the event certainly dates further back. Come the 8th century, Pope Gregory III designated the 1st of November as the time of year to honour the saints, the martyrs, and you get the idea. All Saints' Day would incorporate some of the many traditions of Samhain, and the 31st of October would become known as All Hallows' Eve. Interestingly, in modern times, Halloween has been popularised most by the United States. However, initially, North America was settled primarily by Puritans, incredibly low church Christians who did not observe such holidays as All Hallows' Eve and All Hallows' Day, and they didn't even celebrate Christmas. However, Anglican colonists in the southern states recognised All Hallows' Eve in their calendars. There's no evidence to suggest Halloween was widely celebrated in the United States in the 18th century. However, into the 19th century, with the mass Irish and Scottish immigration, Halloween increased in popularity in the young country. Most traditions derive from the Irish and Scottish immigrants whose communities were where the festivities were initially contained, until over time it caught on more broadly and became integrated with the mainstream. By the 20th century, Halloween was celebrated by people from all walks of life, and America's influence over the rest of the world would lead to the unofficial holiday catching on in the Western world especially, which brings us to the popularity of the traditions we may know today. Hopefully today's video has cleared up some questions you may have had about this spooky time of year. Regardless of whether or not you partake in Halloween, it certainly has an interesting history behind it. But that concludes today's little history on the go video, I suppose. Thank you all for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends, all that wonderful stuff, that would be really fantastic. And hopefully we'll see you all very soon with another video very soon. But until that next time arises, please take care and goodbye.